pushing hard at all. Manny, what shape are you making?
I think I'm gonna go for the, excuse me, hourglass.
Ooh, the ever popular hourglass, I like it. So Manny has a really good setup, we call it, for making this particular shape. If he was going to be making a bowl, the bubble would look really different at this stage. So he's preparing himself to make the hourglass. He's using a wet newspaper right now. Really is like the Seattle Times. Oh, on. It's been folded up and soaked in water, and that allows him to gently touch the glass while riding on a layer of steam and carbon. The newspaper is kind of like the cousin to the wooden block. They work in similar ways, but they do different things.
Pick up the big check, please.
Okay. So we're going to move on to working with the jacks. This tool is really popular. We use it probably the most out of any of our tools here on the bench. Manny's going to use the jacks to make a few different constrictions in this piece. The first is going to be the waist of the hourglass. He's going to make it kind of towards the center of the bubble. He's turning nice and steadily. The jacks work best if they're a little warm and if they've been lubricated with beeswax.
Good.
On. And now Manny's making what is the start of our neckline or our jack line. That's going to be where we remove the piece from the end of this rod when the time is right. He got it started with that last moment at the bench, but he's going to sit down and reinforce that. We need it to be nice and narrow. This is going to be later what we come back to as kind of a weak point to guide the glass as to where to break free from that blowpipe. Whoop, on. Up. So Manny's using the jacks to try to center everything up. That little flame is from the beeswax that's on them. You want a door? No.
Oh. No.
So again, he's going to take a seat, and while using the jacks, he's going to continue to really shape up the body of the hourglass. You can really see where the glass is nice and hot. The whole thing is really glowing. Stop. Off.
Go hard.
On. So the angle that Manny uses the jacks is really critical to shaping the piece. I'll show you guys something in a second once he sets those down. So if you can imagine, if Manny was making a cylinder, he would keep the jacks nice and level to the ground. If he wants to make the waist of the hourglass, he can either go straight up and down or really angle out, and that's going to draw the shape out away from the blowpipe. If he were to use the jacks like this, it would create a totally different shape for him to be working with. So we're always thinking very intently about the angle at which we hold this tool. It really makes everything happen. There's that beautiful angle. His
light.
On.
Stop.
Ah. His hand is probably super hot right now next to that glass. He doesn't show it.
Look. Go hard. Stop.
Ah. Awesome.
Full impression. You can tell how thin this is.
The color Manny's working with is cobalt blue, and it is nice and transparent, but it's kind of hard for him to tell, he said, how thick the bottom is. And that's something we're always trying to be aware of while we're blowing glass. If we make the bottom of the bubble too thin, later, you know, maybe things will be fine while we're working, but then later at the last second when we remove it from the rod, the piece could break. So he's trying to be really aware of that thickness.
Nope. Stop.
Ah, looking good.
I'm going to keep that thickness down there.
I think that's a great idea. So, is it this time?
Yeah, let's
Okay.
do it this time.
So, we're going to be flattening the bottom of this bubble to make a nice flat point for the piece to rest on. Manny's going to use the jacks, and I'm going to be kind of in two places at once. I'll be using a wooden paddle and also this tool called a blow hose, and I'm going to be keeping the pressure inside of the pipe while standing in front of the bench flattening the bubble. So it would be nice if we had another assistant or two to help us with this, but the blow hose is going to make magic happen for us, so it's an important tool. Manny's really focusing the heat on just the very bottom of the bubble. He doesn't want to get the whole thing hot. Otherwise, it could kind of jeopardize all of the hard work he's already put into it. You only want to heat up the part of the bubble that you hope to change. So he's being really aware of that as he works quite a bit of heat into the lowest section of the bubble. Looking good.
Push hard. Good.
Oh, very
Move
nice.
very lightly.
On.
Stop.
Off.
Nice, Lydia.
Nice one. So we have,
Thank you so much, Lydia.
you're welcome. That was a pretty significant
A lot of
change.
love up here, guys.
Yeah, right? This is awesome. Pretty significant change we just made to the bottom of the bubble. We really pushed it nice and flat. And now Manny's going to be on hold momentarily while I make something called the punty. This is going to be how we remove the piece from the end of that blowpipe and continue to shape the top half of the bubble. So I'm going to shape this little bit of glass into kind of a Q-tip shape. And Manny's just on hold for now. He's really trying to maintain a nice amount of heat in his bubble. Can't be too hot or too cold. So we're kind of paying attention to each other's movements. We really need to be coordinated in our timing here.
I'm just torching this because it's really cold up here. And it's still a little bright down there, which worries me. So when that punty goes in, you can actually change the shape of the bottom. If it's too hot, it'll pooch it in or pull it out. Ready?
Yes.
All right, meet you back at the office.
All right. So we both get a little bit more heat on the end of our rods. And then we can reconvene. And Manny sticks it pretty much right in the middle. Nice job. It's kind of hard to see with such a wide bottom like that, but he's really experienced and has probably messed it up about 100 times, so he knows
Oh,
what
way more
not to
than
do. He got it
10
perfectly.
times 100, at least. All right, here we go. I'm gonna put some good water in here because
All right.
it's pretty thick.
Nice amount of water, little tap, and there we go. The piece stays on the punty.
Oh, it's thick up there. So that's just a little bit of water right there, and the tap sends vibrations down the pipe into that line, and that's how that works. So it'll be the same thing we do at the end to get it off the punty. Tiny little bit of water on the punty and a tap. Thank you, Lydia.
You're welcome. So I bring that piece back, and Manny has a couple of seconds to make any adjustments, but it's really good right in the middle of that bottom, so he can move on. He's going to go ahead and take some time to build up the heat in the top of this piece, and then we're going to use a few new tools.
Sophie first.
Okay, sounds great.
And just make sure the big jacks have a little heat on them.
Sounds good.
So they go in there again.
So my job as Manny's assistant is just basically to make his job easier. And he does the same thing for me when it's my turn to do a demonstration. So it really helps to have a nice partner who's there to assist you and to anticipate what your needs might be. I really can't stress what a huge difference that can make.
Okay, get in there.
Get in there?
Yep. Whoa. A little bit more. Stop. That's the way to do it.
Nice
awesome.
one. So while Manny's using the jacks, I can use this tool, the Sophietta, to blow a little bit of air into the mouth of that bubble. And what I'm doing is I'm expanding the material that he's heated up. And this is a new way for us to add air while working off of the blowpipe. You can kind of restructure the piece by having your partner change the volume inside while you shape it on the outside with a tool.
Lydia, you know what? I'm going to trim this. You want to get that little lime green lip wrap if there's still any left?
Oh yeah, there's a bunch. Do you need me at all for the trim?
Nope.
Okay.
Thank you.
No problem. So we're going to be adding a little accent color to the lip of this piece. Before we do that, Manny wants to make sure that the lip of his vessel is nice and thin and refined. So he's doing something called trimming the glass. He elongates it away from itself, thinning it and pulling it. And then he can use the metal scissors just to cut away that little bit that he doesn't need. It's a really great way to get rid of some bulky material. It helps the lip to look really fine and thin. And then we're going to be up here just kind of sharing this piece of equipment for a second. It's really common in the hot shop. I'll let you do your thing.
You can open a left side door.
Yeah. So as the piece gets larger or as you have to share the equipment, you can open up the equipment a little bit to make sure that you've got plenty of room and you don't risk bumping into each other. That would be a nightmare. So Manny and I are each going to take some time here. I need to doll up this wrap so that way it can trail nicely onto the lip of his piece. And he's going to kind of take the time to assess and reshape his own bubble over there.
What do you think?
I think after your next flash, I'll be ready.
Okay.
So timing and heat are really important right now, especially because we're trying to add this extra kind of decorative element. We want to be sure that we're just spot on. Okay, I'll definitely be ready.
Okay.
Coming at ya. So Manny takes a seat and he's going to grab a tool, I think the scissors, and then he's going to guide me right on to his bubble in just a second. You ready?
Yeah. Getting a little trim.
You want it to be hotter?
Yeah, a little bit hotter. And then also, I find that because it's a little tricky over there, Lydia,
Yeah.
come at me like a little bit more angled out that way.
Sure.
And you actually have to stick the back of the end into that pipe warmer almost.
Okay, no problem.
So you're a little bit too right behind me, like come at this angle right there.
Okay, we'll just kind of readjust here. We'll get it this next time.
It's tricky with the lip wrap because, you know, your hand is right underneath that thing, and so if it's at a bad angle, your hand could get burnt. And so it kind of has to come at a little bit different angle. Should I flash quick or?
Yeah, come on
Okay.
over. We don't want to risk being out for too long, so I tell Manny just to come over and get a little bit extra heat. He's in charge right now, but we're just communicating about what our timing is. All right, we'll be good to go.
Okay, let's do it. So this is a lip wrap, guys. I'm sure you've seen a thin little line of color on the lip of a vessel. This is how it's done. Whoop.
So he just trails that right on there.
Beautiful, Lydia.
Thanks. We've got plenty of heat. You guys can already see that color starting to change a little bit. It's going to be a really beautiful lime green. Really cool accent to that cobalt blue. I'm just going to toss this back in our little holding oven, the garage, and we'll be able to use it again a little bit later. So Manny's going to work some heat into that lip, and then together we're going to kind of seam that fresh color up with his bubble, and we'll be able to expand the lip of this beautiful hourglass.
Lightly, up, on top.
Awesome.
One more time. Up, push. Good.
Sweet.
That just, you know, that's the lip wrap is the person bringing the lip wrap is pretty much doing all the work because It needs to be prepped and heated properly. I really didn't do anything. Lydia did such a good job. I just basically directed it to go there, but essentially the setup was so perfect, there's really very little. I don't have to do anything to it.
But I've messed it up many, many times in the past. That's kind of the only way that you can learn to do anything in glass.
Light paddle and then a pump.
Yep.
Push off. A little light. Stop. A little hard as you can. Stop. Maybe we'll do that one more time.
Sure. So again, going back to the Sophietta, we want to inflate that bubble a little bit more, trying to make a gentle change to the volume inside of that bubble. And that's going to help Manny to make a really beautiful, beautifully proportioned piece.
Go ahead. Good. Thank you, Lydia.
Yeah, no sweat. So he goes in with the jacks and peels that lip open. It's looking great. He's going to take some time now. He gives the piece a flash. And what that flash does is it reminds the bubble to stay attached to that punty rod. If that connection gets too cold, the piece could come right off. So every single time Manny goes up to the reheating chamber, he takes the time to give the piece a flash. Now he focuses the heat on just that top half. And then when he sits back down, once again, he gets to work using the jacks, and I can use the paddle to flatten the lip and also to shield him from the heat that's rising off of this piece. So it's all about that angle.
On top.
He's really peeling that lip open.
Oh.
Then he goes on the outside. Gorgeous. That happened almost all at once. That was really beautiful, and the heat was just right. He's going to do it again because he sees a little imperfection, and I know he wants to get it just perfect. You guys probably can tell, or maybe it's hard to tell, the piece is really thin. It's not clunky and heavy. It is super lightweight. I'd say the wall thickness is less than 1/8 of an inch. So he's having to be very quick and expedient with his movements
Light paddle push.
in order to make this thin glass work the way that he wants it to.
Good.
Gorgeous. Nice piece.
I think we're good.
Let's give Manny a hand. So you guys can see the front of the bubble is still kind of glowing red. That's because that's the hottest part of the piece. It's the first to go in and the last to come out of that reheating chamber. Manny's going to take a series of flashes, and he's going to build up some heat in the back of the piece where that punty connection is. Once he sees that the punty is kind of pliable, he'll be able to remove it from the end of the rod without a problem. That lip wrap, that looks very
lip wrap
nice.
looks amazing. Yeah.
Pop.
Thank you.
Yeah, it looks good.
Usually in a lip wrap you'll see some where the contact point was, but I can't see it. It was just
No.
really well made lip wrap. Thank you.
So Manny's
I'm just gonna flash the piece. Yep.
you got it.
Lydia's gonna put on some protective wear to protect those beautiful curls, and also some gloves on her hands because she doesn't want to burn her hands up. And I'm just gonna even the heat out in the vessel. That's kind of a #1 rule in loading. You have to even, if all the heat is built up where the lip wrap is. And so by going in here and splashing the whole piece, I don't want it to move. I don't want it to distort the shape. So I don't heat it up so much that it starts to move again. But I also don't want it to get cold and break. So it's kind of a fine line. I'll do one more flash after this video. Lydia's ready in the stylish clothes. That's her clubbing outfit. Okay, last flash. All the way in, last flash. Should be fine. I usually rush this part, but we'll see. Sometimes I can get away with it. Got it? Okay. I should have taken an extra heat. So there's a tiny little mark at the very bottom of the piece. That's just the punty mark. And so you torch that down, soften it up a little bit. Cool. And then into the annealer it should go. And there's a few other pieces in there, and that's what we've been making today. And at the end of the day, we'll tell the digital controller to bring the temperature down gradually over 12 hours. And then the next day, we'll be able to take that base out and do just about anything we want with it. That's glass blowing, guys. Thank you guys so much. Thank you. I really hope you check out the theater over here. There's some really good video shorts about the construction of the chandeliers. You get to see the team Chihuly actually building this stuff. It's really cool. And also check out the bookshop. Happy New Year, everybody. Come on up and talk to us. Ask us some questions about glass. We're glass geeks. We'll talk to you about it. Thanks.